Hello everybody, welcome back to Wallace's, where today we are going to talk about planting potatoes. This is a great early spring gardening project. It's a really great way to get the family involved. If you have young kids that you want to get into gardening, seed potatoes are a great way to do it. Partly because the potato, or the seed potato that we're using to grow more potatoes, looks just like kind of the end product that we're shooting for. So when you come to the garden center and you see we have seed potatoes for sale, we oftentimes get a question of, well, can I just use the potatoes I got from the grocery store? Can I just use the potatoes I have at home? You absolutely can. They will grow potato plants from those potatoes. But there is definitely a reason to use certified seed potatoes that you can buy at a garden center. The first one is that seed potatoes are usually treated so that they come from an area that doesn't have any disease or pest issues, viral issues. And so before we plant these into our gardens especially, we want to make sure we're using something that's disease-free. The potatoes that you buy at the grocery store sometimes can be treated with what they call a sprout inhibitor. And that is something that commercial growers will do to make sure that the shelf life of the potato lasts longer in the grocery store, so that when you go to buy it, you don't see all of the eyes sprouting, those little potato sprouts that we sometimes see if we leave them in the pantry for too long. So a sprout inhibitor, though good for potatoes that you're going to cook with, not great when we're trying to actually grow sprouted plants from them. So seed potatoes that you buy, they're going to be certified, they're going to be disease-free, and they're also going to not have that sprout inhibitor on them. Lastly, you're going to get a higher yield. You'll actually get about twice as many potatoes from a certified seed potato than you would from a potato that you used from the grocery stores. We only have so much garden space or so much space in our potato planter, and so we want to get the best yield that we can out of them. Today I've got some seed potatoes here. These are Yukon Gold, which is one that I like to cook with a lot. I like to slice these up and roast them just with some seasoning, or these are Yukon Gold is what I use to make mashed potatoes. A lot of the seed potatoes you buy, they're going to be all different sizes. When you have a big one like this, the best thing to do is actually to cut it into smaller pieces, and so we're going to have more things to plant. If you end up with some real small potatoes, this is one that you could actually plant whole or just cut it in half and use each piece. So when we go ahead to cut them into pieces, usually just look all around potatoes and look for those kind of little depressed spots, and you may see a little bit of a sprout starting to grow out of them. We want to make sure that each piece that we cut up is going to have two of those eyes or two of those little spots right there. In addition to evaluating where the eyes are on your potato, you also want to look for any blemishes, any soft spots or rotten spots. If you find a soft spot, as you feel around and it's not firm, you can go ahead and just take your knife and cut that part of the potato out. The rest of the seed potato will grow just fine. I've got a cutting board here, a nice sharp knife, and I'm going to go ahead and kind of cut this into some pieces, making sure that I have several different eyes in each piece of my potato that I cut off. Now, once we cut the potato, we're going to see that we have these exposed, the insides are exposed. So before we plant them, I actually recommend letting them sit like this overnight so that they can kind of callus over and create kind of a drier coating over the edge of that. So once you go ahead and cut them, let's wait till the next day before we start planting. Okay, once you have your seed potatoes cut into sections, or you have some small ones that you're going to plant, the next thing is to decide where you're going to plant them. The nice thing about them is that they're not too picky about where they go. You can put them in a row in the garden right into the ground. They grow really well in raised beds. If you have heavy compacted clay soil, because potatoes are a tuber, which is kind of a root storage organ, if you have real heavy, thick soil, your potatoes will be smaller and you won't get as good of a yield. So if you have really difficult soil, consider a raised bed or using a container like a potato bag. So this is a potato planter that we sell here at Wallace's. Really easy to use, and it's one you can use from year to year. It has a lot of hallmarks of another container, except for it's more flexible. It does have drainage in the bottom, so we have the ability for the water to get out. And what I like is that it has this Velcro window. So as we plant our potatoes and the plants grow, down here we can actually open this up and harvest the potatoes as early or new potatoes while the plant is still growing without disturbing and digging all the way down in the soil. So we're going to go ahead and plant this today, and then I will also walk you through how you would plant your seed potatoes in the garden or in a raised bed as well. Okay, now that I've decided I'm going to plant my container first, I need to choose a soil. Because this is a container, I'm going to use a potting soil or a container mix. I've chosen this Bar Harbor organic potting soil from Coast of Maine. Coast of Maine is a great company that does lots and lots of different composts and planting soils, all organic, and they're formulated with lots of great products, kelp meal and lobster meal, and some just awesome natural products that provide a lot of nutrients. It's just a nice, easy, lightweight soil to deal with. So we're going to go ahead and pour that into our potato bag. We're going to fill it up kind of probably to about here. When we plant potatoes either in a container or in a raised bed or in the ground, we want them to be about 4 to 6 inches deep. So I'm going to plant them about here, and that way I can fill them with about 6 inches of soil and still have kind of an open ring around the top so that when I water, I don't have water and soil coming over the side. So we're going to fill this to about here with soil, and then we're going to plant our seed potatoes that we have cut and calloused. Okay, now that we have our potato bag filled up to about here with soil, we use the organic Bar Harbor potting soil from Coast of Maine. We are ready to add some of our fertilizer and plant our potatoes. Another really quick and easy way to do this is if you have a 5-gallon bucket and you just take a drill some drainage holes out of the bottom, and then plant in a similar way just in a 5-gallon bucket. And it's a really easy way to kind of have really inexpensive cheap pots to grow your potatoes in. One thing that they like when they're growing is they like the soil to be a little bit more acidic than the soil that we have in our area. They actually like to grow around a soil acidity of about 5.5. Just a little bit higher than a blueberry, but lower than most of our edible crops that we're growing, like tomatoes. So what we're going to do when we plant, we're going to actually add a product called soil acidifier. Soil acidifier is just elemental sulfur. And what this does is it's an all-natural ingredient, and I'll show you what it looks like here. And this is going to just kind of lower the pH of our soil. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that all the way around. Probably about 1 to 2 cups of the soil acidifier into this size of a bag. This is about a 10-gallon bag. So we're going to put that in there. And then when I opened up this bag, they actually had instructions, and it said that this bag would comfortably grow about 3 to 5 seed potatoes. So I have about 6 here. So I'm going to go ahead and put them in and just kind of space them out evenly. And what we want to do when we're putting them in is we're going to want to make sure those eyes, or where they're going to sprout from, that those eyes are facing up. So we're going to nestle those all into the soil. And as I said, when you're doing this in a raised bed or into the garden, you'll want to dig a trench or a row about 4 to 6 inches deep, and then you're going to place them within that row about 8 to 10 to 12 inches apart. I like to do them about 8 to 10 and kind of snug them together so that I get more potatoes in there. So, so this is how they're going to be spaced kind of evenly in the bag. And then I'm going to add a little fertilizer too. So the fertilizer I like to use on some of my vegetables in the garden is Biotone. It's an organic starter fertilizer. So this is going to promote quick root development and get those plants going. So again, I'm just going to do kind of a handful of that in and around the plants and on that soil, maybe a cup or 2. We're going to put that into the container. Okay, now that we've got our seed potatoes in, We have all of the eyes facing upwards towards the sun. We've got our soil acidifier and our biotone fertilizer in there with planting. Now we're ready to recover them with soil. To fill the bag up this far, I've used about 1 cubic foot bag of soil. So we're gonna go ahead and fill this the rest of the way to about 1.5 inches or 2 inches from the top. So we're gonna end up using probably about 1.5 cubic feet of soil. We sell the soil in 1 cubic foot bags or 2 cubic foot bags. So buy the bigger bag and you'll have a little bit left over if you're doing in containers. Now we have filled our container all the way up with the rest of our potting soil, and we have it in there nice and ready to go. We've left a little rim around the edge. I like to call that a water ring. And so when we water all of the soil, we don't have water and soil going over the side. I'm going to top dress with a little bit more of the biotone, which is that organic fertilizer as kind of a starter fertilizer that we talked about. So I'm gonna just top dress with a little layer of that. And then I'm just gonna kind of work it in so that when it gets watered, it's gonna work its way down to the potatoes. Now for where this is going to be placed, potatoes like to grow in lots of sun. So minimum 6 to 8 hours, 10 or more is actually the best. So if you want to have really good success, really good high yield, make sure you get them a nice sunny spot to grow. The container or the potato bag makes that much easier if you have a challenging spot in the yard where you don't have as much sun. Or you want to use that for your tomatoes, your real sunny spots. Do the potatoes in a bag or a raised bed that you can move into the sunniest spot that you have. We're going to keep them watered. We want about the top 2-3 inches of soil to dry out before we go ahead and water again. Pretty soon you'll start to see those plants growing up. The last cool thing about sweet potatoes is knowing when to harvest. When you pick out your variety on the bag, it will tell you, maybe 100 days before you harvest. So you can figure it out that way. The other thing is that the plants will tell us when they're ready. So when you have your nice green full potato plants growing, towards the end of the season when it's time to start harvesting those potatoes, the plants will give us clues. They'll start to turn yellow and then brown. They'll start to fall over a little bit. And so when we start to see those clues, that's when you can think about opening this window or digging down in there and starting to gently pull out your new potatoes that you can use for cooking. If you are growing in the ground, the best way that I have found for harvesting is to use a garden fork or a pitchfork. If you have one of these. I also love these for planting and dividing perennials and helping dig up plants where I'm trying to preserve the root systems. This is a great one from Radius. It's got a nice fiberglass handle, ergonomic handle as well. So if you are going in the ground and digging, you may want a fork to help you kind of lift those potatoes out and kind of sift the soil as you're doing it. In a raised bed, you probably don't want to use something quite that big. So in a raised bed, you can just use like a hand cultivator, kind of dig into that row or even down into your 5-gallon bucket and kind of use that to pull up the potatoes and let that soil kind of sift away, and you'll be able to kind of tease out your potato harvest, and then you can start using them to cook and make all kinds of yummy dishes. So one thing about sweet potatoes is that when we harvest them, we tend to harvest them over a fairly short amount of time. They grow all summer. We go ahead and harvest, and then we have a lot of potatoes. And there's only so many French fries and mashed potatoes that we can eat at one time. The good thing about them is that they yield a lot, but they also are really easy to store. So we want them not to sprout, so just a cool, dry place. A lot of times our pantry is perfect for that. Or if you have a really big harvest, you can put them in a crate that's open to the air down in the cool part of your unfinished basement, somewhere like that, where they basically just stay cool and dry, and they can last for months in storage so that you can continue to use them throughout the fall and winter. Here at Wallace's, we do sell certified seed potatoes. We have about 5 to 6 different varieties. Some you may know: Russet, Kennebec, Yukon Gold. Another popular one is Red Norland, which does the little small red potatoes that a lot of us like to roast. So there are different varieties to choose from. We can tell you about the different ones, or you can do research on your own. But come see us at Wallace's, tell us you want to get going planting potatoes, and we can get you started.